but it's David Davies on pole position with Buxton alongside him, then Matt Jackson and Simon Clark completing the second row of the grid. Behind them, Rick Pearson and Jim Edwards Jr., the championship leader, with David Gibson and Jim Edwards Sr., yes, his dad, right behind. And a slow start there from David Davies. Daniel Buxton goes alongside him in the yellow car, but look, going around the outside from 6th on the grid, Jim Edwards Jr. in the white and silver and blue car, and he is working his way through to 3rd place. A great start from the championship leader, squeezing down the inside now into Allard's through the complex, the white and blue car with the green mark. Oh, and someone off big time. Car number 5, Simon Clark, hit from behind by Rick Pearson and head on into the Armco. That was a big one. But out of front, David Davies, then Jim Edwards Jr., Daniel Buxton ahead of Matt Jackson, dropping down to 4th with Rick Pearson still closing in behind as the rest of the pack howl through Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave, now through the left-hander at Noble and out into the back of the Thruxton circuit. Absolutely flat out here, top gear, your foot doesn't come off the throttle pedal now, all the way through Goodwood as we take a look at that big shunt at the Campbell corner. Well, poor old Simon Clark there, hit from behind, and that is a big double whammy down the Armco. A great deal of work to be done there for the man from Lincolnshire. And just look at this, it's all changing places. David Davies pulling away at the head of the field, then it's 2 by 2. Jackson and Edwards Jr., Buxton and Edwards Sr. Who is going to come out of the chicane first? Davies still the race leader. It's Buxton now 2nd, Jackson 3rd, Edwards Jr. and Edwards Sr. fighting for the positions, and Bob Smith hits the curve big time and the barrier. A lot of work to do for the Renault dealer from Norfolk. Meanwhile, a rescue vehicle on the track for the stricken Simon Clark, but the race goes on. No safety car heading the field. The racing is still allowed except where the yellow flags are being waved. And at the moment it's Davies from Buxton, then Jackson, Edwards Jr. and Edwards Sr. still fighting for the top 5 places. And David Davies, the man from Glamorgan, on his way at the head of the field. But a great battle for 2nd place here. The yellow car of Buxton, the yellow and silver car number 8 of Matt Jackson. Oh, Jackson gets a wheel on the grass, and that is a big spin at well over 100 miles an hour. Beautifully controlled. And he rejoins. He's lost a few places though. He is back down 8th, 9th, 10th position now as the rest of the field swamp him. Meanwhile, the battle is still on, and this is Jim Edwards Sr. with the pink mark on his spoiler, chasing Jim Edwards Jr. He's got to run in the slipstream, and father overtakes son into the chicane. A little bit of a lock wheel there from Edwards Jr., but it's up to 3rd place now for car number 3, Jim Edwards Sr., the man who started racing saloon cars in Mini Coopers back in the 1960s, lost none of his touch. And Jim Edwards Jr., the son, still in hot pursuit. Then it's Rick Pearson in the 3rd of the Mark Fish Motorsport silver, blue and white car. Stuart Clark, David Pearce, Henry Taylor, the Donington winner there in car 88, with David Gibson sliding down his inside in car number 1. So not a good race for Henry Taylor at the moment. And it's just like a manic motorway on a Friday night around Thruxton. Cars going absolutely every which way. But still at the head of the field, David Davies. Battle still on 2 with Henry Taylor and David Gibson. And ahead of them, Rick Pearson and Stuart Clark, 33 and 17, going absolutely door handle to door handle through Noble. Now through Goodwood, the right-hander. This is where the speeds build up to 125 miles an hour. Absolutely nailing it on the throttle. Just hang on in top gear, said Henry Taylor, and that's just what they're doing. Through Goodwood, through Village, through Church, and then up Woodham Hill and back to the chicane. And closing in on race leader David Davies is Daniel Buxton. 2 wheels up on the curb, and that line out of the chicanes putting him in a position to challenge into Allard's corner. Onto the new lap. Down the inside goes number 9, but David Davies closes the door right in his face. And what a gaggle down at the chicane. Robin Dale, Gary Townsend and Dennis Bunning, and number 15 Robin Dale from Droitwich there spins out of his 12th place. The battle's still going on between Edwards Jr. and Edwards Sr. And it's Junior now ahead of Senior. Car number 2, Jim Edwards Jr., the championship leader, with father now in hot pursuit. Another overtaking manoeuvre out of the slipstream up at the chicane. The battle still goes on for the race lead. Car number 9, Daniel Buxton, closing in again on David Davies. Davies seems to have the legs round here, but Buxton seems to be able to find just that little bit extra on the brakes. Up Woodham Hill now, up to the club chicane, and you can see the yellow car taking advantage of the hole in the air from the silver car, closing in, and the idea now will be for Daniel Buxton to put the Welshman under pressure. It's Cheshire versus South Glamorgan, Northwich versus Bridgend, and at the moment it's the Welshman ahead, David Davies. But closing in again, Daniel Buxton is not going to relinquish his pressure, and I suspect he has cruised for that previous lap a little bit there just to get a bit of coolness into his tyres to let them grip a little bit more. Let's see if the pressure now starts to mount again on David Davies. Oh, there we can see it. Davies having to defend the line, locks a wheel, and that is going to lose him momentum out of the complex through Campbell Cobb and Seagrave. Meanwhile, Jim Edwards Sr. is closing in on Junior. Behind them it's Stuart Clark, Rick Pearson, Henry Taylor and Matt Jackson. Stuart Clark, number 17, in 5th position. Ahead now of Rick Pearson, who's dropped down to 6th, Henry Taylor 7th, and Matt Jackson, recovering from that huge spin, is up from 10th to 8th and closing. Coming up to half distance in this 14-lap race around Thruxton, the fastest racing circuit in Britain. Stuart Clark still looking good in that 5th position. Behind him, Rick Pearson in car number 33, holding off Henry Taylor and Matt Jackson. And the man most definitely on the move now. Look behind number 88, Henry Taylor, the man who's currently 3rd in the championship. There you can see the yellow and white of Matt Jackson closing in all the time. Oh, and father and son are doing battle yet again. Jim Edwards Jr. still there in 3rd place, but not for long. Jim Edwards Sr. again has perfected that slingshot into the chicane. And P1 for Daniel Buxton. He's managed to grab the lead from David Davies at the chicane. It's the yellow car that now goes ahead. So, Daniel Buxton, the ex-Fiesta racer from Northwich in Cheshire, pulling ahead of the man who started his racing career, would you believe, racing all-terrain trikes, David Davies. Now it's Jim Edwards Sr. ahead of Jim Edwards Jr. 3rd and 4th place battle. Behind them still Stuart Clark, Rick Pearson, and a real melee of cars. Rick Pearson having to defend like crazy from Henry Taylor, who in turn has got Matt Jackson right up his exhaust pipe, and Mark Burton and David Gibson. Absolutely brilliant racing all the way up and down the field. And that is the battle for 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th places. And ahead of the lot now, Matt Jackson making a charge through the field. Car number 8 up into 7th place, ahead of 88 Henry Taylor. Then number 12 Mark Burton. Number 1 David Gibson is closing in on those 4. And what a melee, what a tremendous battle all the way down this packed Renault Clio field. Absolutely flat out still through Church Corner, but it's the number 9 car now with Daniel Buxton into lead, again bouncing very hard over the curbs. David Davies still though right in hot pursuit, has a cleaner line out of the chicane this time. But the performance of that Chris Hodgett's Motorsport prepared yellow car, obviously quicker in a straight line than David Davies' car. And Daniel Buxton's car prepared by former twice British Touring Car champion Chris Hodgett's. And again, puff of smoke there, right on the limit, on the braking through Campbell Cobb and Seagrave. And that is a car coming up to be lapped. Edwards Sr. and Junior are coming up to lap their teammate, car number 23. That's Paul Lomax, the man from Biggin Hill, in the 4th of the Mark Fish Motorsport cars. And Paul does a good job there, watches his mirrors, keeps well out of the way through the complex. Through 2 goes car number 17, Stuart Clark, still there in that 5th position. But it's Buxton from Davies, then Jim Edwards Jr., Jim Edwards Sr. and Stuart Clark, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Balancing the car on the power, the foot nailed right in it, the rear wheel waving in the air there at well over 100 miles an hour as the speed builds for Jim Edwards Sr. Into Church Corner though, there's nothing he can do about the speed of Edwards Jr. out in front at the moment. He's also watching his mirrors there, Stuart Clark. Or is there nothing he can do? Because that is a great toe in the slipstream. You can see the effect of the slipstream sucking Edwards Sr. closer and closer to the tailgate of Edwards Jr. And he's forcing Jr. to lock the brakes and really push it hard through the chicane this time around. Stuart Clark waiting there perhaps for an inevitable contact between the two, because there's no of loss between father and son in this race, I can tell you. Stuart Clark still there in that 5th position. Meanwhile, race leader Daniel Buxton pulling ahead now of David Davies. And just look at the bottom of our frame there, up into 6th place now. Matt Jackson having a very, very good run. A recovery from that spin that dropped him down to the tail of the top 10. Now Edward Senior maybe has just cucked his tyres a little bit too hard. Maybe he lost momentum through the complex, because Stuart Clark all of a sudden might well be splitting the family pairing here. Stuart really does need the championship points. He needs to get a clean finish this time around. And it's Stuart that's now piling the pressure on Edwards Senior. And that is giving a little bit of a break to Edwards Junior. He is starting to pull clear of this melee. There you see the yellow and silver car once again of Matt Jackson starting to close in. It's going to be vitally needed championship points for him. But meanwhile, coming up to start the last lap of the race, car number 9, race leader Daniel Buxton from Northwich in Cheshire. Across the line now, just 2.5 miles to take him back to the checkered flag. And he has now extended a 3-second lead over second place, David Davies, former motorcycle racer. Car number 7, Chris Armeftis, on his way to be lapped. And this has been an absolute dominant drive, taking the lead on lap 8, holding on, pulling away for the final 6 laps of this race. He's now on the 14th and final lap. Out of Seagrave Corner, named after the land speed record holder, through the left-hander at Noble, named after Richard Noble, then through Goodwood. Building speed now, flat out all the way, lifts the wheel one final time through Village Curve. Now up to the distinctive Marshalls Post and the hump on the inside of Church Corner. It'll dab on the brakes this time, the tyres are getting worn. There's the apex, Church Corner, now up Brooklands, holding full throttle all the way up the hill. Woodham Hill, fastest part of the circuit, the final time into the chicane. And this is going to be his first win in the Elf Clio Renault Sport Championship. And what a drive, perfectly judged. Daniel Buxton takes the checkered flag at Thruxton. Maximum points from round 3 of the championship, but the racing's still very much going on up at the chicane. Side by side, Stuart Clark and Andy Thompson, and Stuart Clark's dropped back and he's going to lose his 9th place. A demon move by Andy Thompson, and Clark hits the curbs, almost hits a parked car, and that is a very, very heavy impact. And such a disappointment for Stuart Clark. He'd already dropped from 5th to 9th, trying to defend the position. He just went one step too far. But Daniel Buxton, the winner, by 2.6 seconds ahead of David Davies. Then Jim Edwards Jr., Jim Edwards Sr., with Mark Burton 4th, and Rick Pearson holding on for 6th.
As long as I knew if I was in sort of 2nd, 3rd or 4th with about, after 3 laps, you'd stand a chance, because my racecraft is usually better than qualifying, so they're really, really good.
When he got past me was the chicane. I just messed up a little bit there, braked too late, got in wide. Daniel took the advantage, got in my slipstream and took him to the start and finish, and he held that position.
But it was halfway through the race when the old man over there, he's giving me a bit of a hard time, and I thought, where's he changed the tactics? And he's go for the win himself, but it worked out well in the end, and I've had 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the first 3 races, so can't argue with that.
You're still friends with your dad?
Well, I'll find out in a minute. Yeah, I'm sure we are.
Well, he certainly will be when he discovers he has a 21-point lead still in the championship, ahead of Daniel Buxton, with Rick Pearson and Jim Edwards Sr. tying for 3rd. Tremendous race at Thruxton, more to come, I'm sure, in the Renault Clios. But meanwhile, Daniel Buxton gets his first taste of winner's champagne.